everyone. My name is Mark James. Welcome to Sharing Hope, and I have a real treat today. Spend some time with Robbie Baxter. You may know the name if you know the book, The Membership Economy. And Robbie had a bestseller in that book, and one of the things I really love about the book is, quote unquote, find your super users, master the forever transaction, and build recurring revenue. And she also has a new book out called The Forever Transaction that Robbie, I think, just came out in April of this year. So hot off the presses, and so we'll maybe get into that at another time. But Robbie, thank you. You have been a friend of Medi-Share. We've spent a little time, some of our leadership with you, gleaning from your expertise and background. So we can't thank you enough joining us today. Robbie Baxter.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mark. Absolutely.
I think where we wanted to maybe jump in, given your background and some of the conversations we've had with you, is just, can you just begin to speak into the whole line of thinking around becoming an independent consultant? And I'll simply say it needs no call out, but given the moment in time we're in across the nation, unemployment at an all-time high, people rethinking who they are and what they might have to do, I think your message just, it has a lot of interest. So what does that mean to you? I know you've spoken into it quite a bit, so just share with us a little bit your view on becoming an independent consultant.
Yeah, so I'm an independent consultant myself, and I started down this path in 2001, actually on the not very auspicious day of September 11th, 2001, after I was laid off when I came back from maternity leave from my job. So I had my second little baby. I was a director of product management. I came back after my maternity leave. My boss said, "Oh, don't worry about, working right away. Just relax. We'll meet at 11." And at 11, she laid me off. And I was a little blindsided, to be honest.
Wow.
And I said, so I, this experience of being laid off or being furloughed or losing your job unexpectedly was something that actually drove me into independent consulting. And I said, I want to be in control of my own career and of my livelihood. And it's a lot easier, at least for me it was, to focus on serving one client really well and to navigate kind of a bigger organization and say, are these people happy with me? Are these people happy with me? Is my job important enough to keep, right? Because in this particular case, I was doing a good job, but my job wasn't important enough to keep. So I started in consulting, and what I found, I've now been, that's 2001 to 2020, I've been doing this for 19 years. And I never could have expected to end up where I am right now as a 2-time author and a keynote speaker. When I started, I was literally just trying to earn enough money to cover our mortgage. But the great thing about independent consulting is that you can continue to iterate and evolve your practice to align with your goals, and that those goals may change over time. So when I started, it was really about, can I use my skills to earn enough money to cover my part of the mortgage, doing things that I know how to do. And that was it. So I didn't have any lofty goals of being an expert on anything or, writing a book or doing anything. That was all I wanted to do. And I had to do it, by the way, between 8 and 4, because that's when we had childcare, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday. Over the past years, as my kids have grown up, I have more time. I'm able to travel now, so I've introduced that as a value that I prioritize. I've been able to do a lot of writing, which is something I love, and I've been able to sort of extend what I do. So, that's why I feel so strongly about this path, especially in times that are hard and people are reconsidering the choices they've made and saying maybe this moment that we're having right now that you alluded to. maybe this moment is actually the perfect time to change direction a little bit, to reconsider what my values are and rethink how I package my, what I have to give in a new way. So that's why I think this is, kind of a key moment, and why I think consulting is a good path for many.
Always amazing how blindsidedness or sudden hits, like you described, change into a good direction for us. So that's an interesting point of your story. Robbie, when you think about people in today's world, what do you find that the folks you talk to most often follow a similar path that you did? It wasn't necessarily, directional, or something happened that triggered them to take that step. Can you speak into that a little?
Yeah, it depends on the person. So I've actually run some courses on getting started. So my career, just to be clear, as Mark said, I'm a subject matter expert on membership models and subscription pricing, and that's how I make a living, is by advising organizations on how to build long-term relationships with the people that they serve. But on the side, I really feel so strongly about the power of this independent consulting as a model for people that I kind of do it as a little passion project. But as a consultant, I started getting calls almost right after I hung out my shingle from people who wanted to get into consulting. And some of them were like me, where they said, hey, I got laid off, or, now I have these 2 little babies, so I can't work the same hours or be at somebody else's beck and call. So there were definitely people like me, but there were also people who said, hey, I'm at the end of the formal part of my career. I don't need to work so hard. And I actually have an interest, and I'd really like to help people there. And some people were saying, I have a vision of building a consulting firm around my expertise because I know it's an emerging area. So there are actually a lot of different reasons that people want to make this move into consulting. And that kind of surprised me. I've been doing a lot of, probably over the last 20 years, I've done, maybe a couple of dozen workshops or seminars for different organizations, business schools, colleges, professional societies, to help people who are trying to get started in consulting. And so, it's really been eye-opening to me to see the different reasons that they do it, and also the different kinds of process expertise and deep subject matter expertise that people are able to build into a consulting business.
That's interesting. Do you find in your conversations that the majority of people that you talk to started and failed multiple times, or what's that look like?
Yeah, well, the nice thing about consulting, unlike, let's say, opening a store or selling some particular product, is it's a smoother and more easily malleable kind of model. So what I see a lot of times, so there's sort of 2 different ways that people get started in consulting. One of them is they just dive right in, they invest in, I'm going to build out a website, I'm going to have marketing materials, I'm going to hire an admin, I'm going to do this right. Maybe they take out a loan. A lot of people take out a loan to do this, or borrow, from friends, whatever. The other path, I kind of think of that as diving in. And then there's the other path, which is the Robbie path, which is the, dipping your toe in the water. Ooh, that's cold. Dipping it in again. So I didn't, what I did is and this is what a lot of people do, is I found one consulting project and I said, is this going to work? I had a list of questions, things I was worried about, like, can I even make enough money to pay my mortgage? Can I do a good job? Well, I don't even know what exactly consulting is going to look like. What is this project going to be like? Can I do this? And so I actually did 2 or 3 projects before I invested a penny in building out my website. So I started with my friendlies. I decided I wanted to consult. I called the people that I trusted most, who I thought might be able to refer me into a consulting engagement, former employers, former colleagues, classmates. And then I got a project, did that for 6 months, got 2 more projects, and I said, okay, I see how this is going to work. And that's when I invested. So I don't think it's like a start and fail so much as what does happen is that sometimes people get into it and say, oh, I really don't like this. I don't like being alone. I don't like having to sell myself. I don't like the administrivia that comes with being a small business owner. Back in my company, if the computer's not working, you call a guy and the guy comes and brings you a new computer and then it works. That is not my life, right? There isn't a guy that I call. I'm the guy. And so, people, like I have a lot of people come back and say, here are the things I don't like. And I don't know if I want to do it. And I want to point out that there's a distinction between consulting and contract work. And both of them have benefits. Contract work is where you look like an employee of an organization, but you're only there for a limited period of time. And you have a manager in the organization. You might even have like a phone number at that company and an email address. So you look like an employee, even though you have a different relationship. And that different relationship can be great because it gives you flexibility, right? You can work fewer hours, you can work for a shorter period of time, and often you can charge a lot more, like somewhere between double and triple what you might have been getting as an hourly rate. Whereas consulting, you generally don't have a manager. You're selling your expertise, not your arms and legs. And nobody tells you how to do your work. They tell you what the deliverable is or what the outcome is, and it's up to you to know how to do it. So, you want to there's pros and cons on both sides. In consulting, usually the projects flip over more, so you have to sell more, but it probably pays more. You have to invest in developing and maintaining your expertise as opposed to just being like a good hard worker. And so, you have to invest more. You probably need a website and a kind of personal brand, whereas contractors often can stay in one company for years and years, kind of bouncing from one maternity leave project to the next in, 12 or 16 week increments. But I think that, more than people failing, it's people realizing they don't like it.
Yeah, I really like what you talked about. Two things really struck me on, you don't have to leave your current role. You can take some time to dip your toe in the water, etc. And the difference between a consultant and a contractor, that is a really good divide. Do you find most people that come to you have the contractor view of consulting, or are they more educated about it than that?
Yeah, I think that most of the time they haven't really made that distinction for themselves, so they're kind of a little bit lost about what they're supposed to be doing. And I think it's helpful to a lot of people to say, look, you can be a contractor. Like I have one of my very best friends. She left her job. She was a product manager, a senior level product manager, and she left her job because she had twins and she couldn't work a full-time job anymore. But she really wanted to kind of keep in the game. And she and I did a strategy project, and it was fun to work together. But she hated it. She didn't like the lack of structure. She didn't like the not knowing when you're done because, basically the client said, the question was, should we get into this business or shouldn't we? That was the project. Right. And here's a fixed amount of money that we're going to pay you and come back in 30 days with an answer for us. And she's like, I don't really know what to do. Should we do more research? I don't know if we need more research. Should we, talk to these people? Should we write up a report? Should we put in some charts? I don't know. And what she ended up doing is going into contract work. And so now she is a chief product officer for hire. And she's worked with a dozen different companies over a 10-year period. So she stays for a pretty long time, like 6 to 12 months or even a little longer. And she looks like an employee, except she only works 25 hours a week, and she only comes into the office 2 days a week. And so for her, that's perfect. She comes in, she looks like an employee, she has colleagues, she sits with the exec team, she has a team to manage, but her hours are shorter and her scope is a little narrower. And I think it was helpful to her to kind of make that distinction and be like, oh, I don't want to be a consultant. I want to be a high-end contractor. So that's the helpful part, is to just think like, do I want to be an expert? Do I want to be alone? Do I want to be coming in and kind of parachuting in and then leaving? Or do I want to be part of a team, but with a little bit of, kind of more protection, more constraints?
Great distinction. For you, how in the beginning, you described a bit of how you found your way, dipped your toe. What do you like the best about consulting?
So I love being a consultant. It's funny, when I started, I told you it was because I really didn't think I could hold down a regular job. And I said to myself and to my husband, I'm going to do this until our kids are out of diapers, right? So I had my second one. So then I ended up having a third child while I was doing a lot of consulting for Netflix. And then he was 3. So this was like the end of a 5-year run as a consultant. And I said, okay, now I'm going to go figure out what I want to do, because I don't have to do consulting anymore. I can kind of get back to work. And I looked at all these different things. I looked at going into a consulting firm as a partner with a bigger firm. I looked at going back into product management, which is what I'd been doing before. I looked at buying a business. Like there was a natural baby food company that was for sale. There was a yoga studio for sale. I had some friends who had a tech thing that they wanted me to get into. And none of them gave me the same combination of control, flexibility, income, that I had come to love. And I remember talking to this group of friends, who were kind of my little mastermind group. And I said, I'm so sad because I've been looking so hard at all these different things and I can't find anything that's better than consulting. And my friend said to me, she's like, wait, listen to yourself. I've looked around the world and I can't find anything better than what I'm doing right now. Like, how great. You don't have to change. You don't have to start over. You've looked at all the alternatives and you love what you're doing. Why don't you just, kind of double down on that and just be happy that you love what you're doing? So that was a real pivoting point for me to kind of say, this is my career. This is who I am. And that was when I started to invest in kind of creating more content, developing, kind of more of a brand, more of a focus, professional expertise. And what I love about consulting, to answer your question, is that it's that flexible. That, 19 years ago, it was about, 28 hours or whatever it was, with nice, bounds around it and the ability to earn a good living. And today it's about, I get to travel around the world. I've learned how to be kind of a keynote speaker. I've written books. I've gotten to do so many really fun and interesting things. And the only person I need to ask permission to do new things or change my priorities is myself. I mean, my husband, because we try to do things together. But at one point we decided that I would travel more. And, how great is that? Right. And another point, we're like, well, should I write another book? Yeah, that's going to be really great. Or, pulling back on the work and, digging into the research. I don't have to hit a quota. I can do whatever I want.
That's great. That's great. Have you ever asked yourself permission to do something?
Yeah, all the time. I'm very hard on myself. I don't know if anybody out there is hard on themselves, but I am not a great boss. I could be the meanest of all my bosses that I've ever had.
Yeah.
And the least reasonable.
No, I understand. I have found that the topic of contrast that you just spoke into so valuable. It's so funny how the very thing, like you found your path to, I actually like this. I don't need another item, but you almost have to speak it out and bounce it against something. And I think that's something really valuable. It's certainly been something in my journey I can relate to. So that's a good point. So if you're speaking to, folks in our audience, and I think you've laid out some really valuable items along this conversation, Robbie. If you were to really, at the end of the day, sort of give folks who are either in a career, maybe they've moved remote now, they've never worked remote, and now they're remote, and they're wondering, man, can I keep doing this, or do I want to do something different? you've laid out a lot of really good items. Any just final words of advice for someone just thinking about it, thinking
Yes.
about what's next? What would you say?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is if you think you might ever want to go out on your own, now is a good time to invest in building your personal brand. And what I mean by that is build your network, the relationships you have, and your expertise, which could be a functional area, like I have deep expertise in this type of accounting or this type of customer support or this type of whatever, some kind of a function in an organization, or I have subject matter expertise. I know a lot about insurance. I know a lot about healthcare. I know a lot about, small business management. And to think about where can I get that word out? Can I write? Can I offer my employer, say, hey, you can have me go give speeches, or you can have me, go do those interviews. I want to develop those skills. Do that while you're in a big company, in a big organization. Now, this kind of COVID moment in the spring of 2020 is a great moment to reach out to people. And, what I've been doing when I go to a virtual conference now, I look on the list of people that are attending, I link in with them, and then I invite them to a 15-minute virtual coffee. And a lot of them don't respond, but some of them do. And then you're kind of meeting new people, expanding your relationships. You can certainly do that with your colleagues inside your organization, but also kind of reaching out to people that are interesting to you. It's sometimes easier to do that when you're inside a company than when you're on your own. So I would really encourage people to be investing in that while you can, because it will always come in handy in the future.
Awesome. So I was going to ask you, and you just touched on this, how has your world of being an independent consultant changed given the pandemic?
Well, I used to be on a plane every other week. So that's the biggest thing. I haven't traveled since I think my last trip, we got home on February 18th. And that's the last time I've been on a plane or practically out of the house. And I launched my book, as you mentioned, in April. And the plan for that book launch involved a lot of travel. And I had to really rethink how I was going to launch the book. So I've done a lot from my desk. Unlike a lot of people, I've always worked from home, or I've worked from home for the last, 19 years. So I have a good setup, but the intensity of the work from home has really gone up. And the fact that I have no, meetings outside the home, no travel, that's what's really changed for me. And then also the personal part, right? My family's home. So my husband and I, we have 3 kids. One is a rising senior in high school, but the other 2 are one in college and one was graduating. They're home. So that's the other thing that's really different right now for us. Not necessarily what they want, but I have to say that there is a little bit of a silver lining for this mom to have them at home.
I can relate to that personally. And, we were chatting before the interview about family, and that's part of the beauty. And I am okay with my daughter being at home like you. So that's great. That's great. Well, listen, the forever transaction, before we close out, I want to give you a chance to just talk. You just mentioned it a bit, launched in April. Give us a little preview of what the book is about, and why should someone go grab that at their Amazon.com bookshelf?
Yeah, it's well, thank you for that. The Forever Transactions, the book I have been working on for the last 18 months. And, the first book I wrote, The Membership Economy, really I wrote after having worked with Netflix and SurveyMonkey and a lot of tech companies that were building long-term relationships with their customers that justified recurring revenue. And the goal of that first book was to say, hey, everybody, you can build a membership business. You can focus on the long-term relationship with your customer, and that will give you permission to justify recurring revenue. It's a better model for you and a better model for your customer. And by the way, everybody can do it, from the smallest mom and pop business, solopreneur, subject matter expert, all the way up to the biggest companies in the world, nonprofits, for-profits. By focusing on your customers' needs, you actually can build a much better business. And I wrote that book because people didn't understand or didn't believe that it could be relevant for them. And now 5 years later, I don't have to convince anybody of the power of subscription. Everybody wants recurring revenue. Everybody wants that deep connection with their customers. But people are struggling with how. And I think that the reason that people are struggling with how is because they're putting the cart before the horse. They're putting the subscription pricing before the member mindset. And I think this is something you guys know, from your work in Medi-Share, that the goal has to always be the member's long-term well-being. And if you focus on that, you can always come up with new ways of serving them, new ways of packaging value. But if you go the other way and say, let's charge some subscription pricing for whatever we happen to have lying around, you're not going to build that relationship that's going to justify that ongoing revenue. So that's really at the core of what I wrote. How do you do that if you're just getting started? How do you do that if you're scaling your organization? And how do you do it if you've been doing it a long time and maybe you're getting a little long in the tooth? A lot of organizations talk about, all of our best members are older and we seem to be having trouble attracting new people. That's a membership issue that is very common with long-time membership businesses. They get too focused on the needs of their existing members and stop thinking about tomorrow's members and stop thinking about the new tools they can use to continue to deliver on that same promise. So that's what the new book is about. And it's really, hopefully relevant for anybody that's running any kind of organization where relationships are important.
Well, I think you just described most any business in the world. So that's fantastic. Great. Thank you for the overview. Robbie, thank you so much. Very insightful. And I just really appreciate you taking the time today to share a bit about your story, give us some direction. And for those of you watching Forever Transaction, you can find it in a lot of places. And we encourage you to go out and take a look at Robbie's latest book.